Busy.
How are you feeling? Got that lightheaded stuff going?
Yeah, lightheaded.
Good. Now that time I did actually keep you going for, that was about 20 breaths. Typically, oh, calm down. Typically you'd have, I see you yelling at me with your eyes. Typically you would have 10 or 15 of those in a row would be sufficient, provided you're doing them correctly. You guys are having a little bit of difficulty fully inhaling and fully exhaling.
I think it's the kava.
Is what?
I think the kava.
Don't blame the kava. It ain't the pan, it's the man.
It's always the kava.
It's always the kava. Oh my goodness. Cheated on my wife. It was the kava. Kava made me do it. Guys, another thing you guys can do, just keep on breathing while you watch. Is you can get an object of some form, doesn't matter what it is, as long as it has some form of weight. Put it right on top of your belly. Make sure you're on the ground with your legs bent, such as this way your lower back is forced against the ground. Just relax your upper body, don't be looking at what you're doing like, and then your objective is to just breathe, but don't let your chest move, and only this guy should be going up and down. So. Sense, everybody? Just a second. No worries here. One of the things I love doing is looking like manipulations. It's a good way to build character and learn shit. Plus, you meet good friends when you act like a moron. So remember what I said about your legs? You gotta try to have your lower back on the ground. There we go, there we go. I just noticed the shirt by the way, it's awesome.
Yeah, I know you're doing too well already. It took me forever to get to that.
Oh, everybody loves me. Alright, so just real quick, let's talk about another little technique. I really enjoy this technique. It's called box breathing. It's also referred to as square breathing. It's called four-corner breathing. It's got a lot of different names. Long story short, it's exactly what it looks like. It's easy to remember if you remember a square or a box. One side of the box is going to be a 4-second inhale. I don't think I have to go over that. We know how to inhale for 4 seconds. But the only thing I will say is you don't want to do one of these. Oh, I only have 4 seconds? Yeah, and like force it in. No, it's just a normal old, just I'm taking a breath. I'm just going to breathe in. That's it. Don't force, don't stress, just a normal breath. 4 seconds in. And then you'll be holding that breath for 4 seconds with your lungs inflated. Basically just closing off the larynx. Then you'll be exhaling for 4 seconds. Once again, it's not a just normal exhale for 4 seconds. And then you'll be holding with your lungs mostly empty for 4 seconds before repeating the procedure. Does all that make sense? I know you got this one. Victor, make sense?
Yeah.
One more minute, guys. That's how we feel.
That was a meditation.
Nice and relaxing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's always nice for me too. I had to get that booze. So just take a second, drink some kava or eat group times. We'll get back to it in a moment. One of the things people don't understand about breathing muscles is you actually have about 10 or 12 pounds of breathing muscles. People don't think about that. Now these breathing muscles have to be trained directly. Right? When I'm talking about breathing muscles, I just mean things like the diaphragm, the pelvic floor muscles. These actually require direct training. Just like if I wanted to build biceps, that's not going to happen with me doing squats and overhead presses. It's not going to happen. I need direct bicep training. And the diaphragm and these other muscle groups, they don't have sensors. They don't have nerves. Most of them do. So they can't feel pain. So you don't know if you're training them. You don't know how well you're training them. And you don't know if you're taking them to a proper level of intensity or not.
All right, I'll get it. I'll be ready for you.
Well, that's where I come in. Because it's actually all pretty easy to understand.
Okay, you got it.
So, long story short, your diaphragm and your pelvic floor muscles, the easiest way to picture these things is your diaphragm looks like an upside down plunger. So, just like how a plunger looks sitting on the floor, you cut off the wooden handle and you put that right here in the bottom of the ribcage, it kind of looks like that. Your pelvic floor looks like a smaller plunger, which is turned like this, directly underneath it, and they sit on top of each other. Now, if you're healthy, those two are two bowls essentially, kind of resting on top of each other, working in concert together to allow you to breathe. Now, your diaphragm connects to your ribs, and as your ribs expand and open, then your diaphragm moves either up or down depending on how your ribs are either contracting or elongating. This is kind of how muscles work. So, long story short, by either speeding up your rate of breath or slowing it down in a variety of fashions, you can, I call it tools, but basically you have a large arsenal of tools to use at your disposal to accomplish different things. So, some basic examples would be if you want to have a prolonged breath hold of more than 5 or 6 minutes, you have to, that's easy though, it's really not that hard. Free divers is very easy to do. You simply have to practice one form of breathing technique. If you want to be a very good long distance runner with a good VO2 max, you have to practice something called HRVT training. If you want to be immune to the cold and able to regulate your body temperature at will, you have to practice Chumo breathing. I mean, it's pretty cool. People don't know about these things. I mean, again, I like these things to be memorable. So when we deviated from reptiles a long time ago, we share common ancestors actually, but when we deviated, became amphibians and became land mammals and finally became bipedal, something happened and changed inside of our system. So amphibians and reptiles, they control their breathing via only the exhale. So they can only passively inhale, meaning all they can do is go, That's why if you ever see a lizard get chased by a cat or a dog or something, they run, and then they stop, and they get fucked. Now, why would they stop if they knew they were going to be eaten? They couldn't help it. They ran out of air. That's because they can only exhale and take in what comes and was given to them from their exhale. Humans, we can control our inhales and our exhales. So it's a game changer for us, basically. It allows us to use these tools. So, in order to focus on not having that well, let's talk about this briefly. So, the core concept of breath work in itself, or just, I hate using the term breath work because it sounds hokey, but it's what it is. So, the core concept essentially is within your body, as you know, on the outside you appear to be pretty symmetrical. But inside your body, you just have to look at it for 2 seconds and know it's asymmetrical. It's everywhere, everything. Your organs are everywhere. Well, you got your lungs. On one side, you got 3 lobes. On the other side, you got 2 lobes. Just think balloons. When I say lobe, think I got 3 balloons, I got 2 balloons. Now, the reason for this discrepancy, for this asymmetry, is because your heart takes up a chunk of that cavity. Now, when these 5 balloons are fully inflated, your heart has less room to beat. So in order to maintain blood volume and pressure, it has to beat faster to actually keep it going at the same pace. Now, when your lungs are empty and the balloons are deflated, well, the heart has plenty of room. It's got all the room in the world, so it beats really slow. So think about it like this. When you're actually going to sleep, and you're finally winding down and about to go to sleep, your heart is going a lot slower at that point. Now, you didn't intentionally do that. You just know I'm going to sleep, so your body starts winding down. But you can intentionally put yourself in that state very simply. That's how I go to bed. That's how I take my naps. I just choose to. I control my breathing, and I knock myself out. It takes a minute. But again, you don't have to wait for your body to do it. You can put yourself there yourself. But long story short, this is essentially the core of breath work, is controlling how inflated or deflated the balloons are and then essentially either improving your carbon dioxide retention or your VO2 max. VO2 max is just the actual oxygen your body can process at any given time. Think of it like your body's engine. Like how good is your engine? That's your VO2 max. You can improve that or your carbon dioxide retention. So your brain has natural limiters. These limiters are placed upon your brain, basically to prevent you from dying in a large number of circumstances. But you have something called a carbon dioxide limiter. And everybody's got one, but just like with anything else, it can be trained. And the interesting thing about it is you can actually train it to the point where you'll kill yourself. You don't actually have any survival reflex anymore for it to breathe. So you'll be underwater and you'll get underwater hypoxia, where you'll come up, you'll think you're fine, and then you just sink below the waves because you're actually out of oxygen. And you didn't realize that your muscles have no oxygen to save you. You're just, oh, there's the surface, but I can't move and I can't breathe. But I didn't know I had to. Fuck. So that's somebody who hopefully has a partner with them. That's why freedivers, and they always have partners, because that's actually, unfortunately, very commonplace. Like, I don't know if you knew that. You probably knew that, Phil. But I was.
I have another curious question.
Yeah.
So if he hasn't actually like accustomed his body to like not having oxygen or whatever his requirement is it the? You're saying he can hold his breath for 4 minutes? Is that just something a natural body can do?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Without.
So I like to compare it to musculature training. So a lot of people know the Navy SEAL principle. It's mistaken, but it's a simple way to summarize it. Is when you think you're done, when you think you're exhausted, when you think you've given it all that you've got, you're about 40% of the way done. That's what they say. Now that is wildly inaccurate. People hate it when I say this, but it's actually you're probably 20% of the way. That's actually probably more accurate. People hate it when I say that. But it's very accurate, it's very true. People have something called perceived fatigue. Now this is correlated to, it's not quite the same, but it is correlated to your CO2 reflex. Now you can just kind of, let's say, willpower yourself to hold your breath for a little bit longer, and that'll work to a point. If you have information knowing nothing bad is going to happen to you if you keep holding your breath, you can increase it to another point. If you have a partner there who you trust is a medical professional and they can bring you back to life if you die or something, you can make it to another point. All of these points can be achieved with zero prior training. It's just a perceived, think placebo.
Yeah.
Like, I have all of this help, nothing could possibly go wrong. Of course I can. Whereas if you're alone in a room, you're going to go so much faster. It's that perceived fatigue. And when it comes to the gym, it's very similar. If I took Philip, we just did the Cooper test. It's a specific run test. He did, 12 minutes. You did a little over 1.5 miles in 12-minute run. And, but again, that was Philip's, in his opinion, his best perceived fatigue, though. He absolutely, I'm not ragging on you, by the way.
No, that's fine.
But he absolutely could have done better if he had, let's say, more motivation. If it was a straight line and Diane, your wife, was about to get a rope cut and fall into a pit of snakes, you'd run faster, wouldn't you?
Sure.
I don't know how many seconds you'd save off, but you'd save seconds off. It's perceived fatigue. Well, remember the first time I took you to failure in the gym?
Oh, God.
Yeah, you didn't think you could do that. But it's just perceived fatigue. Now, the training itself is actually really easy, and it is, by necessity, slow to make it easy. So say you want to increase your CO2, and you want to be able to hold your breath for a long period of time. All you would do, literally, is practice that every day with a timer. And every day, try to increase it 2-3 seconds. That's the whole training. There's nothing fancy about it. Then you're going to get to a point where you're struggling and you can't seem to break that plateau. Then it's time to do some research, and you can find out some things like, oh, hey, if I splash some water on my face, I will stimulate my memorial dive reflex, and I can hold my breath another 30 seconds to a minute just because the cold water is affecting my nervous system. And then you can say, oh, well, if I'm lying down and my legs are above my head and I splash cold water on my face and I'm paying attention, distracted to a TV screen, I can go for another 30. You'll start incorporating other things. But again, it's a matter of consistency, just like with exercise or fat loss or anything. It's just a matter of being aware of the correct information, applying it consistently, and with no ego. That's a biggie. So a lot of people say, well, I gotta start my breath work, but I didn't buy a timer. Can't do it. It's not possible. You know, how many people you know like that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, don't worry about that. Why don't you just sit there and do your best, okay? That's day one. Now, at the end of that day, go on Amazon, buy a freaking timer, or use your phone as a timer. Day 2, get a notebook, write on it. What was your time on day 2? Day 3, now you got your timer. Try to beat that time in your notebook. This is the no ego. Don't say I'm going to go from 30-second breath hold to a 5-minute breath hold in a month. Say I'm going to see what I can do.
Yeah.
I'm going to take my time.
Yeah.
So
that's general.
that's general with everything.
Right.
And people hate that. I mean, one of the thing, most of my clients, you don't have to do this, but most of my clients have to literally text me their goals every single night. I make them write them down, put them on a mirror, whatever they may be. But you should have a good grasp of this is going on right now. I'm in this situation. How am I able to now take control of this situation and take control of myself? There's a million ways to do that, but if you don't know the couple, like these 2 little techniques that we learned, if you don't know these 2 little things and when and how to apply them, you'll be screwed in those situations. You know what I mean? Like what I mentioned earlier with anxiety. If you are mindful of your breathing, you will never for the rest of your life have anxiety. It's just not going to happen.
It's interesting that exercise, like, actually feel like a little bit of cramping in the back.
Oh, probably. It just means you got a tight back.
Yeah.
Most your ribs, the way that
Yeah, I'm not used to expanding my ribs in that manner, I suppose.
the way that your ribs connect to your vertebrae, this is a really easy demonstration, is your ribs come around and actually go in between here. So I don't know how people think that they do, but I wish I had my skeleton. I don't have my skeleton today, but basically if you think about the vertebrae, you basically just have a whole bunch of these in your back, as you do. This is just your spinal cord. You have we have little cushions in between. Most people's cushions are really compressed in unfortunate bad ways. Could be like this, could be like this, could be like this. Now people like chiropractors make a living lying to people, telling them that they know what they're doing, they're going to fix you with a chiropractic adjustment. No, you're not. There's nothing you can do about it. Not with that anyways. They're also going to tell you that your spine is wrong. And they'll show you something that they call a normal spine, and that yours is not this normal spine. And they'll show you your x-rays where your spine is slightly different. Once again, they're wrong. Everyone has individual morphology. Everyone has individual spines as well. You can tell if the spine is unhealthy based upon their breathing rhythms and how the spine interacts with their ribs. It's a very different story. So the rib basically connects in here on either side. And when when you inhale rather, even if you're using your belly, your ribs still open up. Now when your ribs open up, the only way they can open up is kind of like a bucket handle. So they go like this. Now they're independent on each side. I really wish I brought my skeleton, but they're independent on each side. And if you have good mobility in your spine and good mobility in your ribs, you have healthy posture and a healthy body. Most people don't. Now, what you were just doing was essentially, more than likely, just taking this little pivot point back here and taking it through a range of motion it hadn't been through in a while. That's all. But essentially what you want to do is have, well, you know some of the things we do are like dead hangs. Philip does a lot of dead hangs. Now he does dead hangs to fix one of his shoulders as well as to restore his back. Dead hangs you do for 1, 2, 3 minutes a day. Not even, you don't like continuously, just when you got time, go and hang. It lengthens the back, it stretches out these abilities. Things like bellow breather, stretches the spine, it stretches the connective right here where the rib connects, etc. I mean, I literally have like 800 lectures on YouTube about these kinds of subjects.
But in that text, when I started, everything was tight, and I actually gained back an inch in height that I had lost.
I'm like 2 inches actually.
It might be more than an inch now, but it was because I was so compressed. Posture was really bad.
I remember when we built the gym at your house. Remember you had the fence thing, and I kept smacking my head in your face. And we were the same height. I'm like, why don't you smack your head into here? And I seen you walk under. He didn't have to duck. And it's just because he was all hunched over, but we were working on it already. But it takes time to fix.
That's kind of how I knew I gained back some height, because I wasn't banging my head.
Well, yeah, a couple of weeks later, you told me you had to raise it up because you were smacking your head on it. Yeah. It's good though. It's measurable feedback in kind of a funny way, I guess.
Yeah.
So, anyways, what do you guys feel like doing now? I got some time still. So, what are we gonna do? What do you guys want to do? I have anything you guys want. You want to just do questions? You guys want to do exercises? You got breathing exercise? We can talk 4-7-9 breathing. We can talk 2-mo breathing. We can do fire breathing. We can do whatever you guys want.
I don't know.
I'm an endless source of information.
Yeah, absolutely. And an endless source of detail. I mean, I don't know if you watch any of the videos, but
Oh, we just about.
it's
you know, when you finish, you feel confused because there's so much detail, but you gotta watch it 2 or 3 times, I guess. But it's just easier when he goes over the stuff when we're together. And then
I guess like I guess I want to exercise better. Like I do a lot of cardio, and I suppose I want to improve that. I don't know. Is there a greater technique for that? Or?
Well, if you want to exercise better, you should talk to me. I mean, I know you're meeting me in the context of being a respiratory specialist, but I'm actually a biomechanics expert and specialist. That's what I actually do. Biomechanics is the study of how basically different forces affect human anatomy or living material in general. My field is subjected only to human anatomy. I train bodybuilders and athletes, things like that. Normal people do, but generally kind of more the high-end people. And they contact me because they know I'm a biomechanic guy. So, long story short, every muscle in your body has an optimum way to move through space. It has an optimum way to contract, essentially. So we'll just use biceps as a simple example. When you're doing a basic old bicep curl, bicep connects here, connects here. It has one insertion point, one origin point, just for the sake of simplicity. Technically you got 2 and 2, but they're right next to each other, so it's 1 and 1. Bicep means 2. 2 muscle groups. Now, how the human body moves, breathes, functions, gets anything done, is your bones have to be brought together by your muscles. So if you want to think about your bones as being 2x4s or pieces of wood, here's one piece of wood, here's a door hinge, here's one piece of wood. Okay? My bicep, think rubber band, goes from here, crosses over this entire lever onto and over the hinge. So now basically I have 2 2x4s connected by a rope, top of this 2x4, over the hinge and attached here. Now the bicep has a guy up top of here. He's holding a rope. That rope is the bicep, okay? Picture a guy with a rope. If I give you a rope and I tie that rope to that chair, and I say pull it towards you. Can you pull it anywhere else except towards you? Can you push it away from you with the rope? Can you move it towards Philip with the rope? Not unless you give the rope to Philip, right? So this is how muscles work. They can only pull in a straight line. Anything deviating from that straight line is a different muscle group. Does that make sense? So, when you're doing a bicep curl, you have the stacked 2x4s, the hinge, 2x4, you have the connection here, you have the guy up here, and he's pulling. Now, in order for this guy to pull from this angle, he has to take this 2x4 all the way from here up to here. It's very difficult from this position because of the angle of the 2x4 being angled downwards with the weight at the end. So pulling takes a lot of goddamn effort at the beginning. At the end, when the bicep is contracted, this is really close to this guy now. It's really, really close. He's got a lot of rope behind him, a lot shorter rope. The actual 2x4 itself is really close now. It's pretty easy for him to pull, but the muscle is already fully contracted, meaning the muscle is completely bunched up and it cannot bunch up anymore. So at the moment, the muscle is done. It's weakest, it can't contract any further, but that's fine because the guy has a really easy time holding it there, no worries. When the muscle is down here, this is something called a mechanical disadvantage. The guy up here needs to pull with 9 times the amount of force to get it out of this position to this position. Now we're dealing with a lever. So if I'm holding 10-pound dumbbell, I'm not delivering 10 pounds of load to my bicep. I'm delivering significantly more. So to put it in perspective, when I'm in this position, or 100% active lever position, the reason being, this would be the pivot point. This is the length of the lever, and if you were to picture a plumb bob hanging from the lever, as I bring this closer, the plumb bob is closer, meaning it's a shorter lever. When I bring it down, the plumb bob, it's a longer lever. As I go down again, it's now a 0 lever. Take it out, it's a 1-inch lever. Take 2 inch, you get the idea. This is the resistance curve. In the resistance curve, this is a neutral lever, meaning due to gravity, me holding a dumbbell, no load is placed upon my bicep until I take it out of the neutral position, in which case the bicep is engaged, with 9 times the amount of force as in this position because of the mechanical disadvantage. When the muscle is strongest, it is elongated. When the muscle is weakest, it is contracted because it has no more room to bunch up. Does that make sense? Now, with the lever in the middle here, a 100% active lever, the most load is being delivered to my bicep in this position. So if this was a 10-pound dumbbell, this is 10 pounds multiplied by a 12-inch lever, the length of my forearm. So that is 120 pounds of load in this position being delivered to my bicep. Now, we don't have to know all this math. It doesn't matter. What we do have to know is that there's a best path for each muscle. It is insertion to origin. So insertion, origin. So insertion pulls towards origin. Now, if you want to think about your entire body being covered in 660 biceps everywhere, that's how you do everything. Contract, 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 contract. So when I do a lateral raise, the triangle-shaped muscle you get your shots in, right here, the deltoid, that's a bicep, connects here, and it contracts, pulling my arm up. If I want to do a forward movement, I have a bicep here, the bicep here, that's my front deltoid. I'm going to lift it, it's now contracting like a bicep right here. If I want to do a chest movement, well, in this case, the origin is right here, it's fan-shaped. So it has multiple origin points, but it only has one insertion point. So what does that mean? You pull towards the center. Is it making sense?
I guess that you can angle with the muscle too.
Oh, I don't want to get into that, but suffice to say, things like incline bench press, for example, they do not target your upper chest. That's a lie. They don't. They target your front deltoid primarily, but they don't target because you have no fibers up here. Again, going back to insertion and origin, this is the angle you're performing an incline chest. Okay, you can literally see my chest. Watch when I do a decline. Decline. Okay, now watch incline. I mean, the shirt's moving, but nothing, this is not moving at all. So this is a really easy way to understand. So that was, what other questions you got about this since we're on the subject? This is actually what I prefer talking about.
Like, I'm focusing on like a lot of cardio. I'm not necessarily bodybuilding at all. I'm just like.
Well, you got to remember though, not to interrupt, sorry, but you can't distinguish having a healthy body from, like, it's good put it. How about if I have the best cardio plan, but I eat like shit? Am I going to make progress?
Not as much. Not nearly as much as I see with it.
How about if I have the best cardio plan, and I eat perfectly, but I don't sleep? It's true, right?
Yeah.
How about if I have the best cardio plan, I eat perfectly, I sleep perfectly, my hormones are stable, but I don't exercise. I don't train other parts of my body. What happens?
I would imagine you just
Same thing.
exercising your heart.
Well, it's the same thing. You're going to start developing a lot of muscle imbalances and problems. So let's get into something else I talk about called biotensegrity. You haven't heard me talk about this enough. So biotensegrity is a complex topic, but I'll try to simplify it. So human beings are not compressive structures. Now when I say a compressive structure, I'm referring to something like this. Okay? This is 2x4s, wood, bricks, plaster, nails, screws. It is one thing resting on top of another thing. Okay? If I was to be having a doctor's office or a skeleton, you know what the skeleton is? And I'll show you the skeleton. Here's the skeleton. What's up? How is he held together in the doctor's office? Screws and wires and butts. Now, you don't have those. What do you got? You got tendons, fascia, muscles, ligaments, fluid. Your bones are very wet. Fuck with your head, huh? So anyways, long story short, your bones, for all intents and purposes, are held essentially in a suspension bridge, but in incredibly complex lattice work of these. Your bones never touch each other unless you're like injured. They will never, ever touch each other. They're basically floating in a very complex suspension lattice work. Now, here's an easy one. Stand up real quick. So just right behind you, there's a keyboard. You see that? All right, so face forward, pointing your toes towards this wall. Now I want you to just rotate your head around so you can look at the keyboard. Okay? Now, did you feel your feet move? Keep turning. Turn. There you go. Can you feel your feet move? The pronation? Now, why are your feet moving if it's just your head turning? Well, it's not. It's because your body, your head turns your spine, turns your pelvis, turns your feet. Everything is connected. Every single aspect is connected. So, for example, let's just say, hypothetically, I had you wear those shoes, but on the left shoe, I gave you a 2-inch heel. So you were wearing a 2-inch heel on one, but not the other. What do you think that would do to your body?
Yeah, be struggling to balance. And
Now, what if you did that every day for a year?
then I would just, I guess, body would accustom itself to that situation, and like, but I would be broken.
You permanently,
Yeah.
your spine would have to
Yeah.
correct it like this. Your
Yeah.
pelvis would be up permanently. You would look like this.
Yeah.
Now, your health complications would be immeasurable. They'd be immense. Here's what happened. You'd go to the doctor and you say, "Doctor, you wouldn't tell him anything about the shoe. Just pretend. You're not gonna tell him shit about the shoe. Let's take it down to you had a 2 quarters stuck on the bottom of your heel and you didn't notice. You just didn't notice somehow. You were retarded. You didn't notice. So you had that for a year. Now you go to the doctor and you're gonna tell the doctor, "Doctor, I can't sleep. I'm having a hell of a time breathing. My neck hurts so bad. My obliques on this side, I'm always cramping. I don't know why. I'm always cramping here. I can't sit on the toilet right. Like when I'm in a car, it really hurts. I don't know what's going on." Well, guess what the doctor's going to do? He's going to say, "Well, you need to get some physical rehab for your hips. Take a medicine to leave that up. And take something for this. Go see a chiropractor for your neck." Okay? He's not going to say anything about your foot. He's not going to say shit. He's not going to think about it because they don't know these things. But long story short, I go,
Also have to move beds and like you're sleeping in bed.
it's many things. But once you have the knowledge, you don't ever do it again. Why would you? You know? But anyway, so let's just say you just do cardio. I apologize. Once again, Philip is here. He's a good example. You wanted to run when you came to me. That was primarily, we asked you first thing, we said, "What would you really like to do?" You said, "I'd like to be able to jog again, jog easy." We didn't start jogging.
No, not for a long time.
We didn't do any jogging for months. What did we do instead?
I'm working on breathing and building strength.
What was that thing that you really hated I made you do? Took you forever to get good at it.
I hated most everything we did.
Jump rope.
Because it was...
Jump rope.
Oh, the jump rope. Yeah, I never could... Yeah, I don't know if you jump rope, but I tell you...
Now we
That was a hell of a
Why
thing.
it's so difficult to jump rope, but it's like,
now,
And the pogo, yeah, that was...
but we also did a lot of working out. We did a lot of the correct biomechanical movements. So one exercise for bicep, one for tricep, front delt, rear delt. You get the idea. So we had an arm day, for example, and he would train his arms completely and entirely with full intensity, and he'd recover. And he would do that for every part of his body. He'd be improving. Actually, you didn't have to work in your diet, but improving his breath work, all these things. Then the first time we took you for a jog, you were a little disappointed because you didn't thought you did that good. I remember. But if I had tried to take you for a jog when you first started with me, you would have been completely unable to do anything, and you would have been really upset.
Yeah.
The reason I had you doing the jump work, increasing your flexibility, strengthening your body, and yeah, doing direct training, it's not to be a bodybuilder. Phil will never look like a bodybuilder. I will never look like unless I'm taking steroids again, I'm never going to look like a bodybuilder again like I used to. You got to take drugs for that. I don't care what anybody says. You have to, or conversely, you could have excellent genetics. But if you had excellent genetics, believe me, you would fucking know. I mean, people with excellent genetics know from the age of about 10. They know because they always look great. They always have big muscles regardless of whether they work out or not. There is nobody who has terrible genetics who can do too much about it besides get as big as they naturally genetically can. And in most people's cases, that's not much, which is very discouraging for them, as you can imagine. But if you do the right stuff the most efficient way, you know it's the right stuff, you know it's the most efficient way, and you know it only takes you 20 minutes a day to do, you don't need a gym, you don't need anything, you're much more likely to do it. Now, if you do these kinds of things, again, I said cardio and all these other things, I get it. But think about it like this.
You still have a few.
If you train your entire body as a unit, you train your legs, you're going to improve your ability to perform cardio. You train your calves and your tibius anterior. You're going to improve your bounce reflex when you're running. It's going to be performed significantly easier. You do the breathing exercises, you do HRVT training, it's going to drastically put your endurance through the roof. You increase your lung volume and rib flexibility. Boom, another giant boost. Then you learn correct running form, how to actually use gravity to your advantage, how to properly line up your body so you're really not exerting effort. really everything is being worked for you. You're just kind of like in a zone where you're just doing bare minimum. But again, the objective is not to have, at least for me, it's not to have good cardio. It's not to have a big, pretty body. It's to have a large arsenal of tools and a healthy body able to apply them in any situation. So what good is your cardio ability if you can't stand your ground for something?